In this video, I'll show you how to review the dose from the first calculation for an ESRT lung plan. As a reminder, we used 18 gray in 3 fractions for a total dose of 54, and I normalized to the isocenter. The prescribed percentage, or the normalization value that I used, is 88%. And I'll show you why I used 88% as we look through the isodose lines. So let's go ahead and evaluate the isodose lines compared to the PTV. So you'll see that the prescription isodose line here in yellow does a fairly nice job of conforming to the PTV in cyan. We are underdosing medially, so let's go ahead and look at our DVH and get a better understanding of our coverage. So if I click on the PTV DVH, and I want to go to our prescription isodose line, which is 54 gray, and you'll see that we're at about 88–89%. So this is kind of low coverage, and I would like to see a better coverage for my first calculation. So I'm going to go ahead and change my normalization to improve my coverage. This will give me a better starting point. So let's go down to dose prescription, and I'm going to change the prescribed percentage from 88 to 86. And now we can go ahead and change our isodose lines and review our DVH again. So when I click on 54, this time I have better coverage, around 93%. And this is a good starting point to evaluate our field weighting and edit our blocks. We want to be covering 100% of the dose, covering at least in the low 90s to get started. Our end goal is to have 100% of the dose covering at least 95% of the volume. So I'm going to go ahead and select F3 and go to field weighting. And I'm going to go ahead and lock all these beams. And what I'm looking at here is that my most medial beams, so beams 1 and 2 and 7 and 8, seem to have a higher weighting of the 50% isodose line. So I'm going to unlock those and shift the weight from these medial beams to the other beams. So I'm taking the dose off of fields 1 and 2 and 7 and 8 and adding them to the other fields to make the prescription 50% prescription dose more conformal. So I want this pink isodose line to be more circular in a smaller volume ultimately. So one other thing I notice is that there's a spike of the 50% isodose line between 2 and 3. So let's go ahead and change the weighting on these two fields. I'm just going to shift the dose from 2 to 3. And that helps conform the pink 50% isodose line. And then I also see from fields 7 and 3. So let's uncheck the weighting for those fields. And then I can shift the dose again from 3 to 7. And we can continue to work with the weighting, trying to get the 50% isodose line to be as small and as conformal as possible. But I think this is a good starting point. Yeah, it's very conformal, the 50% isodose line. This looks nice. And then the next step is to review our block contour. So remember, we had a block 1 and a block 2 contour. They're identical to each other at the moment. But I'm going to use block 2 to shape the MLCs for the second calculation. So I'm going to edit block 2 where we see areas of underdose or overdose of the PTV. So I added a slice superiorly because we are missing coverage of the 100% isodose line superiorly. And here we're underdosing medially, so I'm extending block 2 medially to get better coverage. Here we have the prescription isodose line going beyond the PTV boundary, so I brought in block 2. I'll bring in block 2 again. And here I'll bring it out more medially to provide better coverage. And ultimately what I will do is use this block 2 contour to re-snap my MLCs for the second calculation. And this will help provide a really tight and conformal prescription isodose line to our PTV volume. So here we have areas where the prescription dose is overshooting, so I'll bring in the block 2 contour, and here we're underdosing, so I'll bring out block 2 contour. And I'll keep doing this throughout the PTV, extending and retracting the block 2 contour to help better shape the prescription isodose line. Now bring in the block 2 contour. And one thing you'll notice is that close to the cord or areas of low density, we don't cover as well. And here, closer to the chest wall and the ribs, we have areas of overdosing. And that's pretty typical for these plans. And using this block 2 contour is just a real easy way of re-snapping our MLCs instead of hand editing each of the MLCs on each field. So I'll continue to edit block 2 throughout the PTV volume. And for the sake of time, I'm going to finish editing this field, or this slice. And I'll now just show you how to re-snap to block 2. So you'll right mouse on MLC, fit to structure, and go ahead and select block 2 and select fit. And we'll do this for each field, re-snapping all of our MLCs and helping conform the prescription isodose line to the PTV volume.